Animated Mishaps, Episode 2, The Phantom of Heilbronn. For 16 years, German police hunted the most dangerous woman in the country. Her DNA was at over 40 crime scenes. She was a murderer, a burglar, and a car thief. She was also completely imaginary. This is the story of the Phantom of Heilbronn, the woman without a face, and how an entire continent's police force spent years chasing a person who was never there. To understand how this happened, you first need to understand DNA. So here is a wobbly drawing of it. Every person leaves their DNA behind. On things they touch, on things they drop. It is, in theory, a perfect fingerprint, unique to exactly one human being. So when police find the same DNA at two different crimes, the logic is simple. Same DNA, same person. This logic is excellent. It is also about to ruin everyone's life. Our story begins in 1993, in the German town of Idar Oberstein. An elderly woman is found murdered in her home. It is a terrible crime. The police collect every scrap of evidence they can, including a tiny trace of unknown female DNA. They file the DNA away. They have no match. The case goes cold. For now, it is just one sad, unsolved file in a cabinet. 8 years pass. Then, in 2001, the same female DNA shows up again, this time on a teacup at the scene of another murder. Same DNA, different town, different victim. The police now have a problem with a capital P. They have a serial offender. And then the same DNA appears again, and it does not stay in its lane. Most criminals have a specialty. A burglar burgles, a car thief steals cars. This phantom did everything. Her DNA turned up on a burgled house in one city, on a stolen car in another, on a syringe full of drugs abandoned in a forest. Her crimes were spread across Germany. They crossed the border into Austria. They reached all the way into France. She was, by the numbers, the busiest criminal in modern German history. And nobody had ever seen her. Some of the crimes made sense for a hardened criminal. A murder, a robbery, serious frightening stuff. Other crimes made considerably less sense. Her DNA was found on a stolen cookie. Let me repeat that. Investigators believe Germany's most dangerous serial criminal had, at some point, paused her crime spree to steal a cookie. Her DNA also showed up on a toy pistol used in a robbery. The profile of this woman was getting stranger by the day. Ruthless killer, petty thief, occasional cookie enthusiast. None of it fit together. But the DNA was the DNA. And the DNA does not lie. So the police kept building their case around a woman they could not find, could not name, and could not picture. The press gave her a name, the Phantom of Heilbronn, the woman without a face. And for years, that is what she stayed, a ghost made of evidence, a name with no body attached. The investigation grew and grew. Police across multiple countries pooled their files. Everyone was now hunting the same invisible woman. Then, in April 2007, the case turned from strange to genuinely tragic. In the city of Heilbronn, 2 young police officers were sitting in their patrol car on a break. They were attacked. One officer, 22-year-old Michelle Kiesewetter, was killed. Her partner was gravely wounded. It was a real and devastating loss. And we are going to treat it as one. When forensics examined the patrol car, they found a familiar trace, the Phantom's DNA. The woman without a face was now wanted for the murder of a police officer. The hunt became the largest in the region's memory. A reward was offered for information leading to her capture, 300,000 euros. Hundreds of officers were assigned. Special task forces were formed. Profilers tried to imagine who she might be. Psychologists built elaborate theories. Perhaps she was a member of a Roma family, moving constantly. Perhaps she lived a chaotic, transient life. The theories grew very confident and very specific. There was just one tiny detail that nobody could quite explain. The crime scenes had nothing in common. No motive linked them, no pattern, no logic. A normal serial criminal has a thread running through their crimes. This woman's only thread was the DNA itself. And that should have been the first clue. Because here is the thing about the Phantom's crime scenes. They were investigated by different police forces, in different towns, in different countries. And yet, somehow, the exact same woman's DNA kept appearing at all of them. What did all these distant, unrelated crime scenes actually have in common? The investigators never thought to ask, so they kept hunting the woman. Years passed. The Phantom's tally climbed past 40 crimes. She remained completely invisible, the most documented criminal in the country and the least seen. And then, in 2009, the whole thing fell apart. Not because of brilliant detective work, because of a corpse that made no sense. Investigators in France were trying to identify the body of a man, badly burned, found after a fire. Standard procedure. They took a DNA sample to confirm his identity. The results came back, and the results said the dead man's DNA belonged to the Phantom of Heilbronn. Now, there were several problems with this. Problem 1. The Phantom of Heilbronn was a woman. The body was very clearly a man. Problem 2. The man was regrettably very much dead. He could not have committed a murder in Germany 2 years earlier. The DNA evidence had just claimed that a dead man was a living woman who had been on a 16-year crime spree. Something, clearly, was very wrong. For the first time, investigators stopped asking who the Phantom was and started asking how the DNA kept getting there. They looked at the one thing every single crime scene truly had in common. Not the criminal, the tool, the cotton swab. To collect DNA, forensic teams everywhere use little cotton swabs. You rub the swab on the surface, and it picks up any DNA that is there. Simple, reliable, universal. Every team chasing the Phantom, in every country, was using swabs from the same supplier. And here is the catch that doomed everyone. The swabs were sterile. They were guaranteed free of bacteria. They were absolutely safe and clean for medical use. But sterile does not mean DNA-free. Killing bacteria does not remove human DNA. And nobody had ever required these swabs to be free of human DNA. Because why on earth would a clean cotton swab have a stranger's DNA on it? So investigators traced the swabs back to the factory where they were packaged. And they tested the workers. And they found her. The Phantom of Heilbronn, the most dangerous woman in Germany, the murderer of a police officer. She was a woman who worked at the swab factory, packaging the cotton swabs by hand. As she handled them, microscopic traces of her own DNA transferred onto the cotton, harmlessly, invisibly, on swab after swab after swab. Then those swabs were shipped all over Europe, to police forces, to crime scenes, to the most serious investigations on the continent. Every time an officer swabbed a crime scene, the swab was already contaminated. The detective wasn't collecting the criminal's DNA. He was depositing the factory workers. The Phantom was never at any crime scene. She had never been to Heilbronn. She had never committed a single crime. She had just gone to work and packed cotton swabs. 16 years, over 40 crime scenes, 3 countries, hundreds of officers, 300,000 euros in reward money. All of it spent chasing a woman whose only crime was having a job. The cookie was never stolen by a master criminal. The toy pistol, the syringe, the teacup. None of it was her. It was all the same contaminated cotton, again and again. Even the male corpse in France finally made sense. A different factory, a different batch of swabs, a different contaminating worker. The DNA on that swab had simply belonged to someone else. The woman without a face never had a face because she was never a suspect. She was the inside of a box of medical supplies. When the truth came out, the reaction across European law enforcement was, understandably, a deep and collective silence. Years of work, entire careers' worth of overtime, a profile of a transient woman that was complete fiction, all built on cotton. The official explanation was as simple as it was humiliating. The swabs were not certified to be free of human DNA. Nobody had thought it was necessary. And to be fair to everyone involved, it is a genuinely reasonable thing to never think about, until it costs you 16 years. After the truth came out, the rules changed fast. Forensic swabs now have to be certified DNA-free, not just sterile, cleaned of all human genetic material before they ever reach a crime scene. It is the kind of rule that seems blindingly obvious in hindsight. Most rules are. Usually somebody had to chase a phantom for 16 years to write them. Now, there is one part of this story that does not get a punchline, and that is Michelle Kiesewetter. Because she was real. Her murder was real. And while everyone was busy chasing a phantom, the people who actually killed her were still out there. Years later, her killing was finally connected to its true source, a far-right extremist group responsible for a string of murders across Germany. Not a phantom, real people with real motives. The cotton swab error did not cause her death, but it is a sobering reminder of what happens when a single piece of evidence is trusted absolutely and never questioned. And that is really the lesson buried in this whole strange saga. DNA evidence is powerful. It feels certain. It feels like proof itself. But DNA is only as trustworthy as the swab that collected it, the lab that read it, and the human who interpreted it. And every single one of those can be wrong. For 16 years, everyone trusted the DNA and questioned the world around it. The answer was the other way around the entire time. The Phantom of Heilbronn is now studied in forensics courses everywhere, as the textbook example of how the most reliable evidence on Earth can still send you chasing a ghost. She remains the most prolific criminal who never committed a crime, the most wanted woman who was never wanted, the face that was never there. Somewhere out there, a former factory worker spent years unknowingly being the most hunted woman on the continent, while packing cotton swabs for a living. She never knew. The investigators never suspected the factory. And the swabs, sterile and innocent and absolutely covered in someone's DNA, just kept on shipping. So the next time someone tells you the DNA never lies, you can tell them about the Phantom of Heilbronn, the most dangerous woman in Germany, who turned out to be a box of cotton buds. She was never caught, because there was never anyone to catch. The perfect crime, committed by no one, solved by a corpse that refused to add up. Thanks for watching Animated Mishaps. If you enjoyed this, subscribe and follow at Animated Mishaps for more true stories that sound completely made up. See you next time.